Hello, everyone. It's Kate Stillman, and I'm here with Claudia Huber, who's in Germany, and we're going to talk about how do you leverage. It can be one of the hardest things for wellness pros. Like, how do you leverage the things that you keep doing again and again, rather than invent new stuff? And the reason it's a problem that I've found over time is like I learned this from Ken Wilber at the Integral Institute, and when they looked at like the demographics of people who basically do what we do, we're in the cultural creatives, so we're super creative and we're creating culture. So it's always easier to be like, oh, I'm going to do a new course rather than I'm going to teach the same course again. So let me ask you, is that more or less the crux, or is there more?
Yes, and of course there's always more. But I really, this topic is really great because for me, I really sense into like the longer I'm doing this work, the more I need to go deeper, right? And repeat myself. In order to do that, I have to keep myself interested in what I do, and that is one of the hardest things, actually. But also the people that I'm inspiring.
Yeah.
And what I'm also sensing is that if I can do it, then like I want to be more of an expert. And I think becoming an expert is when you're going deep into one thing, right? So for me, that's also the goal, like, how to become that more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we can do a few different things. I mean, we can look at zone of genius versus zone of competence. I can also talk a little bit about, because I've taught the Yogi Detox since 2002, so 20 years, same course, same name, but the course has evolved and the community's evolved. Body Thrive, 2013, nonstop. Living Ayurveda course, 2007. So I have this joke about like my courses don't die. Like we try to kill them, but they don't die. They're, like the community wants that thing, that course. Yoga Health Coaching, 2012. And Wake Living became Master Review, and I think that's 2015. So I speak from a lot of experience of being able to stand in the same place and the depth that comes when you don't constantly pivot and don't keep offering new things, but you stick to what's working and you go deeper from there. So when I look back, there were times, and it's also part of my maturation journey because I'm 49, which means that I started teaching the Yogi Detox when I was 29 and started teaching I know it's wild, started teaching the Living Ayurveda course when I was 37, right? And now I'm 49. So it's like I went through a lot of maturation in different times of my life that really influenced what I was feeling at the time about the course. So at some points I would get bored. Like, really? We have to do another Yoga Detox? Like, we've got to do number 11? Or like, really? Like, we still are going to do Body Thrive? Like, aren't we done with teaching the same 10 habits? And so what I would look at there is like, it's like always being able to bring your edge of what is edgy to you is really important to the dynamicism of the community. And it brings your vulnerability, which is also engaging for the community. So to me, it's one of the differences between being a teacher and being a coach. And it's also the difference between being a teacher and being a leader. So like a teacher often repeats the same lesson to their students. It's like 6th grade math, and they teach the same concepts, right? And so I would get away from the teacher mode and more into the engaged coach mode of like, what is it going to take for this person in front of me to have a breakthrough? And I would get so interested in that. And then your knowledge becomes of service to their breakthrough. And if you focus on that, you'll always be engaging your edge.
Yeah.
Like and I look at this all the time, like how can someone have a breakthrough faster? Like I just talked to a woman who's going to come into Body Thrive. She's got a couple autoimmune diseases. She's 50 pounds overweight. She drinks every night, right? How fast? How fast can she feel supported? How deeply can she feel supported? How quickly can she get the allostatic load off of her back? Like how fast can we get the load off her? How fast can she take the load off? If I get interested in that, I'm not bored because now I'm challenged. How effective can we be, right? Because now it's like you better not get the same results you got for people a year ago. You better get better at what you do, or you will get bored.
Yeah. So I guess in terms of marketing, like, because that's where it gets also boring, like marketing the same things over and over. But that also means like when you market, you really have to think about your target audience. I mean, you always have to, but I feel like even more. Because only then it's like, well, if you think about that and if you write a text or a post or do whatever you do in marketing and you think about the person that's receiving the message, then it's more enticing than just whatever writing something. You don't know where it lands in the universe, right? Like,
So in our marketing, we're almost never talking about our courses. We're talking about their problems. So it doesn't, right? So it's like, what's the angle that's most edgy and interesting for you that connects to their problem? And that's not boring because it's edgy by definition. And then that'll bring you more into your depth of like, what do you need to learn next? So what do you need to learn next? What do you want to learn next?
I'm totally into merging Ayurvedic ancient science and yoga ancient science into like also modern language, modern medicine language, modern neuroscience language. So merging the two worlds.
Okay. Particularly more in neuro. Or overall, like.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, coming out of leading my own clients now, it's also about like nutrition and those two worlds, bringing them together. And then with habits, if you teach habits, it really is like, circadian rhythm and circadian medicine and Ayurveda, right? So so those are things that really...
If we take that, let me just pause there. If you take neuroscience and circadian rhythm, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to put 2 hours a week into reading the scientific literature on this. There's going to be stuff you can't understand because it's too much in biochemistry. But there can be stuff that you do understand as well. Right? And so you read the stuff you can understand, and then you get to know the language of neuroscience, which is, it's a lot about neurotransmitters. It's a lot about how certain molecules interact with other molecules. It's about uptake inhibitors, and it's about, it's even about the dysbiotic microbiome plaques, or the dysbiotic plaques that they're finding in the brain, right? Because that's all the stuff that disrupts brain function. So if you just take, right, and if you have disrupted brain function, I mean, the study, there's an interesting study on obesity and the size of the pineal gland. So the pineal gland has basically an inverse relationship. The health of the pineal gland is affected by obesity. The size of the pineal gland is affected by obesity. Like, why? Can you explain it? So then if someone's like 20 pounds, say your target client's 20 pounds overweight, doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a totally different operating system. And it's totally different operating system in terms of brain health and neuroplasticity. So now, again, you're able to use your desire to learn in terms of what to research and what to write about. And then what your marketing is what you're researching.
Yeah. And that is, I do that. I read so much, and then it's like, well, I want to share all of that, but I know I have to digest first before I do that.
Yeah.
So I have to get better in terms of like my digestion, so to speak, and then teaching it on and actually not teaching it, right? Because like what you're saying, like when you teach it, you're not the leader, you're kind of just the teacher. So I guess I have to really get better at like digesting.
So the way that digestion, cognitive digestion happens primarily is through writing and editing.
Yeah.
So it's not just about writing, it's about editing, and it's about looking at something and saying like, is that true? Is what I wrote just true? And then you look for research to validate it. And then you end up learning more, but then you end up refining what truth is. So some of the newer findings in brain science around how we are constantly meant to learn. We're constantly meant to learn and adapt as a way of being able to better predict our future. And if you look in Ayurveda, it's the first sutra in Charak Samhita around Hita Ahita, right? It's like learn what's working and what's not working for you and adapt your behavior. Well, they just proved that in neuroscience. They just proved that in brain chemistry recently, really recently, like this past year. So it's like there's so much that's right there for you. So I'm curious, if you were to spend more time researching and writing, if you were to use that in marketing primarily to engage and educate the people who are following you. So again, stepping into the leadership role in that. What then? Yeah, go ahead. What comes up?
I think I've already gone into that direction, and like in terms of what I'm doing is I'm writing a lot of social media posts, and I'm not writing them from like my, how I feel today, but like I plan them, I write them a month ahead or something, and then it becomes this like long document, and it's about one topic. So you could even say it's kind of like a book with different chapters, and the posts are kind of long. Yeah. And so I see that unfolding there. And then now I just wonder, it's like, well, maybe.
But that's really different.
Yeah.
I think that's different than what I'm talking about. Because like writing a social media post, I would go the other direction where I would write an article, I would write a piece, I would start publishing on Medium. I would really do writing. And then I would take bits out of that and publish that on social media. I wouldn't consider social media writing, not writing to make you think and learn and go deeper. Because you said what you wanted was you wanted to go deeper into wisdom. So then if you look at the course, so say you have what's the name of your course? Your annual pass course?
Glow Habits.
Hello Habits.
Glow.
Oh, glow habits.
Yes.
Glow habits. Okay, I love it. So with glow habits, if you're already marketing glow habits, they get used to glow habits, and then you basically get blind from saturation, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have to market glow habits. You can market to, if you're carrying 20 extra pounds, what have you learned this week? Like, are you learning? You're designed to learn. And so again, say you really look at that and you look at what is actually happening in the at the neurochemical level, and you're able to mix that with your Ayurvedic and yogic wisdom, right? Where you're kind of cross-validating, and say you're targeting that to people who are into yoga in Germany. So where does it need to get published? Who needs to see the article?
Yeah. So really it is, I already felt that I kind of need to go the other direction, because it's, for social media posts, it's almost too long writing. And so I'm like, okay, kind of have to, adjust.
It's not why people are
good.
on social media.
No, exactly. They want to be entertained and partially educated, but mostly entertained.
They want to like connect and comment and say hi. Like they're not trying to read an article.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah.
And then I would say, like, what's the body of work? Like when you look back, say you add 30 years to your life right now. How old are you now?
41.
41. So imagine you're 71. You're 71 and you're looking back. Like, what do you want in terms of your body of work? Like, what do you want to have put your time and energy and attention into? Is there, it sounds like you're into thinking about things and writing about things. So it's like, is it a series of articles? Is it a blog that has organized around, around content that's life-changing, right? Is it a book? Is it a series of audio files? Like, what's leverageable for you in the long run that really makes you intellectually develop? So that, because when you're intellectually developing, that's neuroplasticity. Now you're really engaging your edge. You're growing your brain. And now you've got a lot more to share, and you're much more effective as a coach than like everyone should go to bed early, right? It's like, why? Yeah. Why does it matter if you go to bed at 10 or if you go to bed at 2 a.m.? Why does it matter in terms of leptin and ghrelin? Like, what does it have to do with those two hormones? And how then that affects your fat cells? And how does that affect the immune system? And how does that, and being able to speak to those things with modern, in a scientific language is hard to do and easy to do once you get the hang of it, and really effective. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm right in the middle of this process. Like I can totally relate to that. Like my brain is just like expanding, and this whole new language that comes in, and I love it. And then I reconnect, and then sometimes it's like I don't have a connection, but it's like this learning process. So I'm totally in there.
Good. Really good.
And I think I just need to, as I said, digest and then also sort it so that. Yeah.
Let me speak to that, because I find people are really confused about how writing works. And I have recently watched a number of writing seminars from University of Chicago writing program and New York Times writing lectures that are made for people who are writing professionally. Writing is hard. It takes a long time, and it's mostly editing. It's not mostly writing. It's mostly researching and editing. Yeah. Right? And in that process of researching and editing, that is the digestion process. That's the digestion process for the mind. And it can seem insanely time-consuming. It is insanely time-consuming. But if that's the way you get smarter and better able to communicate, to me, there's not that much optionality around it. It's like there's not that much optionality around whether or not humans should intermittent fast. If you don't want to have chronic inflammation, you have to intermittent fast. It's not optional. If you want to develop your intellect, you have to keep processing ideas and taking new information and seeing it from different angles and editing down. Like, this is what I am standing for. This is the best statement I can make based on all this. And that's what gives you a voice. So like there's this idea that like a good writer can sit down and write, right? It's like, no, they're researching and editing. That's primarily what they're doing, is researching and editing.
And how do you, like when you do that and say like you're totally immersed in like the writing process and the researching and editing, and then how do you not lose like the person you want to talk to, like in that moment? Because I feel like this is something I also I always need to have them in mind, right?
Yeah, you definitely need to have them in mind.
Yeah. How, like,
and what are their
edges? So immersed in like the the studying, and then it's like, well, but what is really relevant to that person?
Yeah.
Coming back to like
You'd start with like, what problem am I solving for who? Always come back to what problem am I solving for who?
Yeah.
Or who am I talking to and what problem am I solving? So answer that.
I mean, that can rise from like when you do the study and then all of a sudden you see like, oh, there's another problem I can solve, right? So it comes out of that process. So
but even just if you ask yourself that question right now and just answer it, and we can riff on it, it's like, what problem are you solving for who? In your career, in your work, and why you're a wellness pro. Just like speak from your heart about it. Don't edit. Just like speak about it. I'll help you figure it out.
Well, I just had my feedback sessions with my year-long graduates, and what they really said is that the course and the work with me for a year, it basically changed their life. Nothing more and nothing less. And so in terms of like whatever their goal was, and there was different goals, like they came in with different goals, but the tools, the generic Ayurvedic dinacharya habit tools worked for all of them, and kind of, just kind of helped them achieving their goals and even more.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How many of them, I'll ask some socioeconomic demographic questions. So how many of them are moms?
Mostly all of them.
Okay. How many of them are grandmas?
No one.
No one. Okay.
No grandma.
No grandmas. So mostly moms. How many of them are German?
All
of them.
All
How
of
many
them.
of them are local to where you are, or were they throughout the country?
I'd say 70% local and then 30%.
And you're coaching in German?
Yeah.
Okay. And so would you like to expand more throughout Germany, or are you happy with regional?
No, I would like to expand. Okay. Of course. Yeah.
Well, no, not everybody, so personal. So German, so moms in Germany, and if you were to tell me in a nutshell, like what are the biggest issues that mothers in Germany are facing right now that you help solve for? Because you just did. You changed their life. So what were their problems coming in? Weight,
really
sleep.
The most important thing, ease. Living in ease.
Ease, yeah. So, and how much of that is their own, I mean, it's Svasta, right? Like how much of it is being established in their own rhythm and vibration?
Well, all of it.
Yeah.
There is no ease without being in rhythm and being established in the self, right? So all of it is linked to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you look at that, right, it's like, okay, and it's not just mothers, and I don't want to categorize it that way, but it's like women, it's not like, it's like, no, I don't want to, how am I going to say this in a way that doesn't sound weird, but like Germany is fairly homogenous, and because it's a smaller country, because of its taxation, right? There's certain reasons that like it doesn't have the huge spread of other countries. So the cool thing is like you work with modern women. Some of them are mothers. They're all German, right? And so the problem that you're solving for them is that they're living in stress, and you can, in a year, change their operating system so that they're living in ease, so that they love their life, so they're really at home in their bodies. They're living from rhythm. They experience their own vibration.
Yeah.
They wake up.
And also they have a tool for achieving what they want. Like, it was really like I really dive into like how whatever you want, you kind of link that to a habit, and through really getting good at that habit, it's like connecting to the bigger goal that you have, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like, because all of them, everyone has, the goals are too big and too complex, right? So it really is always like, well, what's really the goal and how can you achieve that?
Yeah.
With like step by step, and also linking to habits.
Yeah, and it's really tantric, right? It's really fueled by the
Yeah.
desire. That was the key in there. It's like desire, get your desire to work for you, not against you.
Yeah.
Like, and then your deeper desires will lead to deeper fulfillment.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
now you repeat it back to me. What problem are you solving for who? And you can riff.
Well, I'm.
But like I can say it, and you cannot, and be like, yeah, that's it. But I'm like, yeah, okay, that's a good start. And you know, people are gonna watch this. The yoga health coaches are gonna watch this. The people who are coming into working with us are gonna watch it, and they're gonna be like, yeah, what problem am I solving for you? So this isn't just you. This is all of us. We all have to wake up and realize, if we're not solving a problem for a specific group of people, we have no idea what to write in a social media post. We have no idea what to write a blog post on, or how to write. And this is a very hard thing. I mean, when I was writing Wild Habits, I wrote it to learn, and because I had to write it, because I had to answer a question of like, how do I write about urine therapy? Like, where does this fit in? And I'm like, oh, there's all these habits. It fits into a new category. Well, who am I writing it for? Well, I'm writing it for my members. And I'm writing it for my coaches so that you guys have shared language, shared context, shared understanding. So then I get 4 months into writing and research on it, and I start editing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so, this section is so scientific, it's so boring, it's so dry. And if someone doesn't recognize 20 words in one paragraph, they might not read it. So how do I need to say what that paragraph says with 20 words they don't know? Because I know exactly who I'm talking about, and I know exactly what problem I'm solving. It's like, I'm solving the problem of chronic inflammation at a global scale for health coaches, right? And I'm writing it for health coaches to be able to educate their people in any country on these big issues in the language of science. I'm not writing it for scientists to continue their education. But if a scientist reads it, they're going to be able to reference the citations, and they're going to be able to see where I'm coming up with a statement from. So they might read it, but they're not my primary audience. So when we get really good at this, what happens is like someone reads it and they're like, oh my gosh, I understand so much more about this than I did 5 minutes ago. Okay, good.
Yeah. So I really think, and I've been doing this for 2 years now. It's crazy. Time flies, right?
Yeah.
But really what mostly people were saying is, that they have a tool to achieve their goals, and that like whatever airy-fairy goal that's, big.
So the problem is
the
problem is they're not achieving their goals. So just say that. The problem is that
they don't even know what their biggest goal is, right? So they have too many and they don't know how to achieve it. Yeah.
Okay. They're having trouble achieving their goals. They're going to think they know what they, or okay. So they might, so the problem, okay, good. And
because the goal is not something like losing 10 pounds, because the goal for most of them is finding ease. And so that's something that
is that the language that they're going to use or you're going to use?
Well, it's a German word, and it's really,
It is.
Yeah. So, well, ease is not German, but in German we say Leichtigkeit. So that's what they all say. They kind of really say, oh,
great.
We want that, right?
Great.
So
I want that. So the problem is I want that and I don't have it. And I know I don't have it.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
And who are they? For whom?
Yeah. So it's women mostly around, anything from 30 to 40, even to 50. So it's huge. Like I'm serving a wide range of women right now. but they all have in common that they really want this thing that they don't know how to define or reach, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Great. So I would stick with modern women in Germany. The problem that they're solving is they don't have ease in their everyday life, in their day-to-day life.
Yeah.
So once you know that, then you write to them. But you might, in your writing process, in your research and writing process, write things that you, as part of your learning process. And I just want to highlight that. Like, you will be writing things that won't work for them, and it's for your learning. And then when you edit it, you'll edit it for them, because you'll have learned what you needed to learn. And you can't write as well for them unless you learn that. And then you can say, express the science in their language that they can quickly understand. So don't expect to write it the right way the first time, and expect the digestion process to happen through editing. And as you're editing for how they will enjoy reading it.
Yeah, I think it needs to be funny as well.
There you go.
Yeah, like I need to play that card, and I can be funny sometimes. So
I'm much funnier in writing, than I am in speaking. I find humor super easy in writing. It's like because there's an intellectual dimension to it that it's like easier to. So yes. So there you go. And then you can do the 5 words exercise just on your on marketing. So in 5 words in YHC, right? And you can do 5 words that describe your annual pass.
Yeah.
But you also do 5 words that describe your marketing. And then everything that you put out in marketing has to have those 5 words. So funny might be one of those 5 words.
Yeah. Yeah, it is definitely. Has to be. It has to be. Yeah. Yeah. So I for me it's always like, if I'm interested in the stuff I'm doing, then I can, activate people to do it with me. But I really also burn out myself if I have to repeat myself. So when you said about like not making it about myself, but like thinking about them when I do the work, so that can really help and shift things.
I try to record everything I need to teach so that I don't have to repeat it.
Yeah, but like where? In a voice or a text or like?
I prefer teaching with my iPad, right? I prefer like a visual learning, or sometimes I'll make slides when it's like it's too complicated. So I'm doing a lot with slides now to help break down the scientific literature stuff into, something people can watch in 20 minutes. And really get a download. They might have to watch it 5 times, but it's good, that like I only have to say it once, they could still watch it 5 times. So anything that I want someone to learn, I'm going to record and store so that I can reference it. So I can say, oh, just go watch this. But then I can coach in real time. So for me, anything that's like me with the group, that's all coaching. I might though, so say if anyone was on Body Thrive last week, I did basically a half-hour slides. I was like, I'm going to teach this, but then I'm going to pull that half hour out, name it, isolate it as a lecture in content, put it in the hub so we can reuse it and someone can search for it. And I can say oh, this is the deal on get up to date on chronic inflammation, understand the science behind it. And fat tissue. We talked about, I read from Adipose, which is a chapter in Wild Habits. I want people to understand if their fat cells are creating inflammation or if their fat cells are anti-inflammatory. If they're putting out anti-inflammatory chemicals into the blood, or if they're putting in pro-inflammatory chemicals into the blood. I just wanted all Body Thrive members, let's learn this. Let's understand at the level of fat tissue, the level of your fat cells, why you want metabolic flexibility, why you need to have the habit of intermittent fasting, why no human gets away with not having this habit, right? Let's understand adipose tissue, or meta dhatu in Ayurveda, right? So that's a lecture. I'm going to take the opportunity to coach it live But then I'm going to take that piece and now I can create it as, I can put it out in marketing as a podcast. I can put it in the content hub for future members who might come in and they weren't at that lecture. And 6 months later, it's not what I feel like teaching because I've already taught it. But then they can get up to speed on that. Does that make sense? So then I'm much more available for like, what is the person in front of me need to be focused on?
Yes. Yeah. I totally get that, because right now I'm still teaching part of the time I'm coaching. So say I have 1.5 hours with my members, then I teach half of it. And then it's like not enough time for coaching or something. And then it's like, well, but then that stuff that I just taught is important and more people need to know it. So like what to do with it.
Yeah.
so there's like this, okay.
And you can edit out parts of it for marketing. So you can take a 2-minute clip, use it for marketing, right? Put it on Instagram.
Yeah.
And say, hey, if you want to talk to me about this, add to the comments below and we can jump on the phone, So now you're using it as a content piece for future members. You're using it to get your current members up to speed and you're using it for marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to really look at like use the content more than once.
Yeah. Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that's where when you do that, I really experience this in books. It's like part of the reason I write books is so I can say read chapter 3.
Yeah.
Because that's as good as I got it, is that chapter at that point in time. Yeah. Like that's as good as, like the adipose chapter in Wild Habits, like took me, I don't know, that one chapter, I don't even know how many hours. We'll say 30. But it's done. Right? Mm-hmm. And it'll last, just like chapter 5 of Body Thrive has lasted me since 2015.
Mm. Yeah. It really, there is this cool thing in writing that it's just so long lasting, and in a world that's so fast, it's great to have something to read.
Yeah, and then you can take a paragraph. Say you take the blog post approach instead of the books, and say you're like, okay, my women, because I know who I'm solving I know who I'm talking to and what problem I'm solving, and here's the 10 blog posts that they need to read. So I'm going to create a series, and then out of the series of blog posts, I'm going to create 100 social media posts out of that series, and I'm going to teach from those 10 blog posts. So I'm going to have 10 lessons that I'm going to create and record in an audio-visual format for my current and future members. Like now it all makes sense to do it. It's all cross-fertilizing. And people need to see it in multiple ways to get it, and they need to hear it multiple times. And now you have a renewable resource. And that's really what I would say is like anything that's teachable, make that a renewable resource. The highest value your members can get from you is coaching. So if you have good renewable resources to back up their learning in the process, then you can do the highest value work with the person in front of you. People are so needing deep engagement, deep, honest, intimate engagement right now, more so than ever. And so it's like, if that's what you focus your time together around, it'll be much more effective than delivering a lecture. The lecture is great for, again, if you're going to make it into evergreen, I use the lecture in front of the members because I'm going to do it better. I'm going to do it 100 times better than if I'm doing it alone on my computer. By yourself. Yep.
Yeah. But also they hear it better when it's live. So it's like, well, kind of have to find that balance, because
yes and no.
When it's live, I listen to it more or so. Yeah.
Yes and no. Like I've listened to the same podcast interviews 3 or 4 times. Some of them that I'm like, I'm really trying to understand the level that they're speaking from. Right? Yeah. And like what they know that I don't know. So I would say yes, there is something to a group listening to something together and having an experience together and then having a conversation after. Yes.
Yeah.
And they don't have to have a lecture every week.
No, they don't. It's too hard to digest.
It's too hard to digest.
It is too much also.
Yeah.
So one question that comes up now is also, so I'm a health coach and I have a lot of like health wisdom, so to speak,
Yeah.
like as an Ayurveda practitioner and even other educations that I have.
Yeah.
But it seems to me like people or the women that come to me, like their most problem is not health. It's, you know, the mental or emotional state. And they
how can you take that out of health?
Right. So they do have health issues, but they're not dominant to them, or they're not like, you know, the most urgent thing to them. And like, well, I want it to be urgent, but they don't see it that way. So that's my question. Like, how can you make it urgent to them so they, so how can the health piece come into?
I would say like that, if you look at your next, we'll say like content creation, it's to answer that question. And it's to break that into a number of different pieces. What do you know that they don't know? And the answer to that is like, you know how to experience ease, they don't. So what pieces are they missing? And part of it is maybe what's happening between the mind and the body, or the emotions in the body. And starting to break that. It's like, it starts out as like a monolith. It starts out as this big thing, and then you create 10 pieces around it, and it's like 10 different entrances. It's 10 different ways of 10 different insights into that you have that they don't. And then it gets you all on the same page of like, oh. So like this woman I was just talking to, the one that's carrying extra weight and has had a bunch of surgeries and drinks wine at night and, you know, has a lot of stress and very competent and a mother and all that, right? Like when we're talking, it's like, what do I know that she doesn't know that she wants to learn? And at the level, super common, it's like not earth-shattering at all, but like at a very deep level, it's like, oh, she does not know how to put what's most important, what's important. She does not know how to put herself in a position of priority, and it will actually eventually bankrupt her family. Because like health issues are insanely bankrupting to other people. Like any person's health issues in a family end up costing everyone else in the family. Time, energy, attention, money, doesn't matter. Right? A person in thrive versus a person in disease. But she has no way of seeing that angle unless I help her see that angle and break it down in language that she can really emotionally connect to. That's my job. Right? And how do I say it in a way that will actually land? Because I'm not going to say something she hasn't thought of. It's just got to land in a way it's never landed.
Yeah.
And that is not boring, you guys. Like that will not be a boring contemplation. Because now you're cognitively engaged. It's stretching your own neuroplasticity. You've got some research to do. Both in the ancient text and in the scientific literature.
Yeah. It all comes back to like really thinking about like, who am I talking to, and getting so interested in them.
What problem am I solving?
Yeah, what problem am I solving?
You're solving a problem for someone. Yeah. And this isn't true, you guys who are listening, like this is true of all writing. Even a social media post. Like what's the hook? What's the before story? What's the after story? What's the takeaway? That's a social media post. Hook, before, after, takeaway, right? So it's like, what's the takeaway? You're solving a problem. The before is the before side of the problem. The after is the after side of the problem. The hook can be funny, right? The call to action, right? That's the takeaway. Like, what do you want? How do you want to be useful to this person? It's like they should do something different from reading the social media post or reading the blog post or reading the book. Okay, so this, I promise you this, Claudia, this session will be more useful to you to re-listen to.
Yeah.
And write down And as you're writing, all these problems are going to come up of like, oh, I'm actually solving this problem. And think of your past members of like, for Johanna, we solved this part of the problem. For Suzanne, we solved that part of the problem, right? And so instead of seeing them all as having the same problem, if they want to experience ease and they aren't experiencing that yet, look at like what was their language around their problem.
Mm-hmm.
And your course is the solution for that, right? But when you look at, well, what part of the course is the solution? Well, this one, it was the solution was being in a dynamic group. For this one, it was like they just needed to dial in this thing. And, and you'll start to see like, okay, those are each then pieces of content. Those are each lessons. And that's the marketing.
Yeah. And there's, endless options to again. So much. So much. Yeah, because
and then you got to expand your reach. So you got to look at like what popular German blogs you've got to get on, what popular German podcasts you've got to get on, like who else is serving this niche. And they're looking for actually a holistic specialist. What I'm finding more now is like companies are getting really hip to they've got to take better care of their employees if they want to keep their employees. So they're opening all sorts of wellness avenues, conversations, etc. So I would look in that direction as well.
Yeah.
Just try to get create great stuff and get it out to a wider audience.
Yeah, I think that. I honestly think I create great stuff. So
Great.
I need to get it out.
So need to get
it out in different, different groups.
So the next time, I'm giving you a ton of homework, but that's okay because you and I only talk every 6 months or whatever.
It was a year.
It was a year that you were telling me a letter? Yeah. You guys have to go back and listen to the past Yoga Health Coaching podcast with Claudia Hoover. It was so good. Her members, after her first year in YHC, they made her a book of how she had changed their lives. And it was like, we were crying on that. It was so beautiful. So beautiful.
I know.
So, oh my gosh. Well, if we only talk once a year, I better give you more homework. So what I want you to do is I want you to write a list of like the top 10 places you want your content to appear in Germany.
Okay.
And then you're going to tackle all 10 of them. You're just going to like everyone like how do I get it in here? Like what do I need to do? Who do I need to talk to? And it might take you a year to get to all 10, but everyone will lead to a more interesting conversation somewhere else as well. And you might want to hire someone in PR. Like you might want to get, find out who does PR for people like you there. Because those introductions can really go a long way.
Yeah.
You need to help yourself get discovered.
Yeah. That's a good, PR. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And now that you know what problem you're solving for who, like who to approach. Like who should show up on that top 10 list.
Well, I think also, and I hope really also with like now things are opening up more. We were still pretty, tied down and kind of still are. So I really hope if things are opening up to be more in, and actually, like real conversations with people or like at events and stuff. Like just I feel like that's really important for me. To not only live in this online world.
No, you need to get out.
Mix it up.
Go be discovered. Like go let yourself be discovered by being in the right place. Totally. And grow a network. Intentionally grow your network of like where you appear, where you comment, where you appear in articles, where you contribute. Like that will really help. The nice thing about Germany is it's small. It's a lot smaller than like the US. Right? It's just geographically, but population, number of publications, it's smaller. So it's easier to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond. So let yourself go do that. Like go be that.
Yeah. it's funny that you say that. At the same time, we like in specific magazines, there's always the same people. So it's so funny.
That's what I would say. I would write a letter to the editor.
Yeah.
I'm like, your stuff's super boring. You guys keep talking about the same things. Like, if you want to solve the real problem, this is the problem that your people are actually having, and this is what I'm going to contribute to. Let me know if you want to talk.
Right.
Let them know.
Yeah.
Let them know it's not hitting home because they're, saying what they said last year.
Always the same people.
Yeah.
It's really is.
Yeah. And it's not that interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then there's levels of things, right? So there's like the A players and then there's the B. Like, go for B first, too. And just get more exposure at that level. And then if it's good, you'll start to get intros into that game where it's like always the same people saying the same thing that everyone's already heard.
Yeah, it's so boring.
So boring.
Annoying. So annoying.
And letting them know that is really super helpful. And you can even, like, as you start publishing more on platforms, like a lot of people use Medium because it's a platform that gets a lot of exposure, is you can call them out and be like, this stuff is boring. Like, this is what you guys should be talking about. Let me know if you want me to write you an article. And then send it to them.
Well, I had no idea that I'm going to be, that I have to write more before I entered this call.
Well,
and the thing
writing
is, like,
more so you can think.
Writing. Yeah.
So you can think.
Yeah.
So you can develop your thinking and coaching and teaching and all of that. And writing is the tool to develop your brain. That's really why you're writing, is so that you can go deeper. Because that was your thing, is like, how do I go deeper? I'm like teaching the same things, but how do I go deeper? And it's like, yeah, you write. That's the process. People who are good speakers were good writers, usually. And that's how they refine their ideas that they're speaking about.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, awesome. So good to have. Oh, and listen to the last Yoga Health Coaching and the last Body Thrive call from last Thursday, and you'll see the content. You'll see the adipose, intermittent fasting. Like, I needed the community to get up to speed on how fat cells work. So you'll see that demonstration of like how I use lecture, and then you can see how I pull it out, like snort. It was an episode. I recorded that with Body Thrive live coaching on the snort habit, and then we published it as a podcast, so then it's used in marketing. But the thinking behind it happened through writing, and that's what I really want you to get, is I had to write about it, to coach it, and to market on the podcast.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome.
Okay, awesome. I'll see you around. Awesome. Show up more in YHC, and I'll see you more than once a year.
I was actually in I was there last Thursday.
Oh, you were? Okay. Well, speak up. Be like, Kate, I got my hand up. I'm here. I'm here to say hi. All right. Love you. Bye. Oh, and hopefully I'll see you in Lisbon, June 3rd to 5th, everyone. We're going to Lisbon.
And I'm coming. So I have booked my flights.
Oh, I can't wait. You'll get to meet Indy. Indy's coming.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay. I'll see you there.
Yes.